Okay, team. Kia ora. Community Services. Just reminding that we are now recording these workshops, which I think is great for transparency, etc. So, are you guys going to talk through? There's a lot to get through today, I'm aware, but we have got a little bit of time. How would you like to play this?
So I think probably we'll take the presentation kind of as read.
Yes.
What we'll do is we'll just very quickly identify some key things that we kind of highlight in each of our slides. I think and so go through that and then open questions as we go through as well.
Yeah, I think that's good. And thanks, Simon, for stepping in. Ken, I know Ken's on leave at the moment, so thank you. Right, the floor is yours, team.
Thank you. So, libraries.
Thank you. Most important first of all.
We did have a debate about
You have a morning tea, elected members come and all of a sudden, library, they're like top of the roost.
Okay, so I reported on the library drop-off bin at the rec centre. It's been a real success. We've had it there for 2 years, and it's just another opportunity for borrowers to drop their their books off while they're visiting the rec centre, and it's been working really well. I think we had and 2,500 in the last year, 2024-25. So it'll just keep going. We've got another bin at the QEC as well.
Right.
So it's just, and we're looking at other opportunities to put drop in. It's just got to really work for us as well, whether we can get to the bin, etc. Cool. We've got the staff coming in and returning from the rec centre, returning the books to the libraries. So it works really well. Good sustainable option. Also highlighting the statistics, we had a really busy year last year across the Clutha libraries. Hawea Library was the busiest. Our KPIs are centred around physical book checkouts. And Hawea Library has been growing increasingly over the last couple of years, and they were up 18%. An extra 5,000 books checked out over the last year, which is quite a lot for a small library.
So is that busiest in absolute terms or relative to?
Say it again. Are they?
Is it busy in absolute? Like, is it busier than the Wānaka library?
No.
In relative terms.
In relative terms,
yeah.
They only have 2 staff and they're open
much
shorter hours. So they're probably just quite busy. Makaurura Library also grows. So good to see our rural libraries. This is right across the district. The rural libraries seem to be taking off as checkouts and getting busier and busier every time. But they are open quite a few less hours than the main libraries. And Wānaka Library had an additional 4,000 checkouts, which, when in relative terms, is not as busy as the Hawea Library. But yeah, so it is growth in the Upper Clutha. There's a lot of I've put some other stats in there, but there were about 125,000 visitors across the Hawea, Wānaka and Makaurura over the years. So it's quite a lot of visitors. That was a little bit under last year, but still a lot.
Tell us about the Story Walk, Sue.
Story Walk is up and running now. We've got it. It's located at the Makaurura school. Yeah, and been very popular. In fact, the girls going up there, I think, to change it. We change the story about once a month, so it's been really popular, and the school are really happy to have it. But also, they're welcoming visitors from the community as well. And Mountain Film Festival donations. That's been going on for about 3 or 4 years, and we're very lucky to be able to be the recipients of the donated books that are highlighted in the festival. And if we have the books, we spread them around to all. It's been a really good partnership.
Thank you, Sue, and thank you for hosting Barry, Linda, and myself yesterday. I think only the day before yesterday for the morning tea, and celebrating the soundproof meeting room, which is open for bookings, free for any not-for-profit organisation that's very generous, and hopefully it gets heaps and heaps of use.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's great.
Yes. Awesome. So, parks.
Yeah, so morning everyone. So I'm not going to elaborate too much on the things because I feel like you guys are pretty much well over top of them because you attended a lot of them. So you know, as you know, the playground's finished out at hardware, getting lots of good feedback around that. The other one that John, you'll be aware of the Cameron Creek realignment. That's been getting a lot of good feedback around that. Now that's completed, both anecdotally and formally, that feedback. And maybe a couple of operational things. Yeah, the hardware cemetery. I'm not sure if you're aware. I guess people that ran that, they've come to an end and they've asked, and we're going to formally take over. And just some sort of community elements that we Parks team do, you know, planting and fencing. That Waimana Bay to Bremner Bay section, you know, that's been pretty popular in terms of the fencing and rabbit control down there. So I'm hoping we're not creating a new problem because we're taking rabbits away. We'll have to do some.
Just around that, just that section that had been fenced off for a while between Waimana Place and Beacon Point. They went back and did some, so the existing, the north side, the older stuff. You were going to go and do some shooting the other night. I'd be interested, was there many, do you know what the count was?
Oh, I haven't got that, I don't know that. I'll go and ask Georgie about it.
Yeah, just let us know, because it's just like it's been in place and it'll just be really interesting to know. Okay. Do you know, John?
No,
I'll just get Georgie to give us a bit of feedback. And what you're asking is whether that fencing and that work down there is actually.
Yeah. I'll be wondering if they went back through and there was only a handful, or whether there is actually still a lot of work to do. Anyway, it'll just be.
I'll go and ask that. I guess in terms of the upcoming stuff, so you guys all been involved with the Ely Point Tree Succession Plan, so that's coming to a close, and so we'll bring that back shortly. Mountain Lion Trail Plan and ecological enhancement. So Kat's just working on that. So we've been in touch with the biking group during that, and we're going to reconnect and start working on that really shortly. I'm conscious that there's a lot of communities in wanting to do something, so we're aware of that. And so
one just to go on Mount Island, there's been a huge amount of feedback lately just around the surface condition of Mount Island. So both on the lower trail around the base, which is shade, gets affected by frost heave, but also up the front face.
Yeah, that's probably from a result of just part of that handover of the dog land. They had to do a whole lot of work prior to the handover, about the condition trigger. They did that. Those are the areas you're talking about.
Well, they're the areas affected, but the one up the face they did some work on, but the one around the base hasn't had any work. But I'm not. The point being is they need some surface gravel.
Yeah, and so we can just add that to the work program.
Yeah,
so I'll put in a few RFSs around particular points.
There's been feedback in the last week, particularly that it's unwalkable at times, and that people are travelling around it, making it wider as well.
The worst place is where the car park got closed opposite Puzzling World. If you go through where the style was removing that fence there, that big money bit for about 30 metres there has just got worse and worse and worse. So that's
Old Racecourse Road.
And then at the other end is the bit to Old Racecourse Road.
This was something the trust brought up as part of the renewals and the renewal for that section. And the feedback we got was that you didn't want to do anything until that planning was done. I'm just wondering whether this is becoming more urgent, that something does need to be done.
So we need to go back and review that.
And once again, there's a difference between maintenance and renewals.
Yeah.
So there's actually the maintenance team should actually be onto some of that stuff as well as the renewals program. So
how about I take that away and we'll just have a look at
that's the
principle. I've just seen recently online, there's been a little bit of chatter about lights, okay, around some other places, locations in Wānaka, and there were some comments in there around lighting at the skate park, and I can inform you we had a bit of a resourcing issue around that just recently, but that's all on track and we're back on track to try and deliver that. Haven't got a time frame, but we are looking to deliver lighting at the lot skate park. Once we get a time frame on that, we'll come back and give you some time for us. We'll take back.
It's just been the longest protracted lighting. How many people does it take to change a light bulb or put some lighting up? It seems to have gone on for a long time.
Yeah, I will say that everyone thinks that lighting is easy to deliver. It's not. There's more than just what you see on ground. So it's a little bit more complicated than you think. Okay, so
and I think the post you're talking about, someone wanted the Frisbee golf course and Lismore,
yeah,
which let's just say got a mixed reaction.
They certainly did get a mix reaction.
Yeah, John, go for
There's
it.
just one other thing about the Cameron Creek renewal.
Oh, jumping back, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't get a
It
chance.
was my fault. I didn't.
I just want to make sure that the work is done to secure that easement that council requested. So when the track goes through,
Yeah, this is-
an agreement for easement was put in place, and now it needs to be surveyed and the easement registered. So I just want to make sure that happens.
I'll come back to you outside of this. That's quite something. I do remember that it's quite specific. So we'll come back to it. I thought we'll put rabbit control that are going on around the district, both by council and not by council. Okay, and so I just wanted to reiterate that council's only responsible for council land. It's not responsible for rabbit control on private land, and that's a bit of a misconception in the community. Okay? So we get a little bit tricky. You might have seen some comments on Facebook just trying to clarify that position. There's quite at the moment because it's only there's a bit going on.
Where I fielded a few questions from public around the Pindone drops, and one of the requests was, is there a potential in future to utilise a dog registry to be more proactive around notifying people as an outlet for people to get updated? Sam has actually passed that on to the team, the relevant team who are working, but it seems like a pragmatic way to utilise what we've got. I understand, and I've set back, the roles and responsibilities not on council land, it's not us.
I was going to say that question's been answered on Facebook post. Yeah, it clarifies the position on the use of the dog registry.
Can you tell us?
But I think basically for privacy reasons, they can't really go into that.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, my computer's locked out.
Moving on to the winter planting with Kakano, multiple locations.
Sorry. Yeah, so that's just, I guess, some of the work that Nina leads. I guess what I'm trying to point out there is that she connects in with a lot of those groups around the thing, and there's a lot going on. It's actually, I guess you've got some history with those groups and connections, and so she's really been able to utilise that. Probably one of interest to you, Kat has been organising the bollard fencing around, the Wānaka sports car park. So that's looking to come forward and forward. And one that again that's interesting, you guys raised around clearing out some of the gardens on the Wānaka waterfront, in the stage 4 area, and the team's going to do some further clearings there, just around the toilet blocks. You've got some sort of trees that have kind of reached the end of their life, and they just need a bit of a tidy out. It's probably in line with the work that you did previously.
Just the views of the car park from another car park. So when you're sitting in the cafes along the lakefront, just looking at car park.
Yeah, that's funny that when I go along and I think it looks great, and then you get to the toilet block and you go, oh, they could have done a little bit more. So it makes perfect sense. So great. Pleased to hear that's continuing to be a project.
Everyone has the same view.
Great.
Yeah.
So sorry, I'm just going to jump in there because I did have a question from Lyle that did ask me about the land reclamation of the land from the campground for the active travel pathway. Where has that got to? So
That's the Stone Street one, isn't it?
yes, the Stone Street one. Kat, would you like to answer that, Kat?
Yeah, there's just been a bit of a delay in the fencing and the contractor, but it is definitely on the list of what we done.
Would you mind just making a note and just letting Lyle know that his question was asked and that's underway?
Just regarding, you touched on the Stony Creek fencing, but just to acknowledge that the fencing they put up opposite Mount Esporin College on Lismore Park looks excellent compared to the Randy wire fence that was there.
Looks great.
So, as well as the other little bits like the one on Rockbury Lane and stuff like that. Yeah.
So the Lismore Park opposite Mac, is that only half finished though? I thought we were going to continue it up Plantation Road.
That's what we've done at the moment, but we're having a bit of a discussion about whether we need to go up a little bit more. But the purpose of it was around protecting the reserve and the grass, and it doesn't look like a lot of people are parking on the grass up there.
A little bit past the mound. You've got the mound that's being dug out there. There is a little bit of transgression, but yes, not as much as there was further down Plantation Road.
Might have to go right. But then you've got the ditch that kind of.
Or on the Lismore side as well, there's a couple of spots that have been challenging. So.
Okay. Thanks, team. Sport and Rec.
So hopefully if you've been past Valentine Road or Solidification Ponds, you would see that it's basically been essentially cleared. So all the rubbish and a lot of vegetation things have been cleared. We're just working through the final steps of remediation, contamination, buried in the encapsulation cell, and basically looking at water and earthworks over this period of time. So the contractor's working, Ridge is working very hard, and there's certainly, if you go drive through the whole 3 parts area, you'll see that a lot of mounds and earth and things are certainly getting distributed around the site. And so we're looking forward in the next months, or next couple of weeks, I should say, for some trucks to be starting coming onto Valentine Road to start pulling. So we've just gone through and ripped all the old pipes out of the oxidation pond area, and we're just been filling those in at the moment. Yeah, so all that stuff has been taken and sorted out.
Great. That's well done on that.
Yeah, so that's, it's very positive. We've just got a little bit more detail to work through, but essentially we're full steam ahead.
So just on that, Simon, because we probably put in quite a lot of contingency for the unknown contamination. We didn't know how that could have been a thread that kept on pulling. Since we deserved some luck, and we got some luck there that it wasn't as pervasive as we thought. Is there more money in the budget now because it was set aside for possible decontamination that isn't needed any longer?
So I think we still have contingency in our budget. However, until we actually continue doing the site, we don't know.
But that aspect, we're in credit at the moment from that aspect.
I wouldn't say we're in credit, because essentially we had a provisional sum in there. That provisional sum is about what has been spent on it today.
Haven't come across any surprises.
But we haven't come across any surprises. We actually need to dig into the budget, and in addition to the budget that we've allocated. Probably the only other couple of things very quickly is we're underway with the project manager on board to implement the Wānaka Rec Centre under 12 lighting project, and also working with the AMP and the rugby around the range, the number 1 field, and floodlights, the number 1 field, plus a few other bits and pieces like undergrounding and power and a few other things. So we have sort of been waiting till September to have a really good look at what we can do in that space. Unfortunately, the way in which we can do it, we're probably still looking at doing the drainage itself, probably in September next year, 2026. So that's positive. As I said, it's just a matter of timing, and lights are taking about 17-18 weeks to be delivered. So we have to think well in advance to make sure that we've supply.
Question regarding your lighting policy, so to speak. So, I mean, part of the discussion that came up the other day was about light scale, and obviously we need flood lighting, but we also want to minimise light scale. And I know you factor in the design, but I've been past there a few times when there's nobody using the fields, but the lights are on. So what's your policy regarding that, and how do you manage that?
So one of the things that if I use the up to every round at the moment, so we've implemented a light system there, but what we haven't implemented is our Wi-Fi ability to be able to put it down. So what we're doing when we install the second set of lights, essentially it will be on Wi-Fi. So essentially someone will go past and go turn off.
Yeah.
So the idea is essentially we have certain consent parameters we have to work in anyway. But essentially the idea is that if we find that there's nobody using it from 8 o'clock onwards, then the club will have the ability to be able to stream it.
Wānaka Rec Centre.
And Wānaka Rec Centre is the same. Yeah.
So they don't turn them off when
no, because the facility is still open through till 9 o'clock at night. And so essentially anybody publicly could use those. So that's the reason why.
Can you give some thought to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think one of the things we are seriously looking at is how we manage those lights, which is why I guess council has taken back the control of all floodlights, or trying to change.
You're talking about energy cost or light pollution?
But
Well, yeah, I mean, the lights only need to be on when they're being used, and the startup time's not horrendous. It's 5 or 10 minutes or something. So, you know, if someone did want to came in and said I want to use it, it's not impossible to turn them on either. So anyway, I just think there's no point in them being on at 9 o'clock at night if there's no further use anticipated on the site. So
I'll certainly take that back to my team.
Sure.
We'll have a look at it.
Thanks.
And be some sort of system like that, irrespective of the formal system that we've got.
Just on the lights bill, Hightower seems to be lighting up the whole of that subdivision currently. I don't know if there's any opportunity to tweak that at all.
So Atari.
Hightower.
Yeah.
The old Mike Sandal,
Hightower.
the light out in the car park just is huge.
I'll pull it then. Thank you. And then I guess just as far as sort of some big projects, obviously we have just the process of appointing our project manager and our design team for the indoor courts in Queenstown Centre, and also underway with our procurement for energy upgrades, which will be Wānaka Rec Centre, sitting with RPG there. So we envisage that we should have a project manager on board sometime in the next sort of month, 2 months, and starting to go out for a design team to get underway to try and do some replacements around. This is a sort of a 2-year project, so we expect the design to be sort of done by June-ish next year, and construction obviously probably be over some period in 26, 27. And then lastly, obviously the Torture Schools route, we have a new bike shelter, this flat and Wānaka Rec Centre. There were some delays, I understand, to some of the hoops arriving, which is why it looks like it's very empty in there. And there were some other little defects that we're still working through with the contractor.
Hey, what's happening with the floor, Wānaka Rec Centre floor?
Yeah, so one of my team's working on a procurement plan at the moment. We're essentially, unfortunately, we're unable to get any contractors in this summer, but it's more likely looking at being programmed this summer when the funding becomes available 26, 27.
Yeah.
and the roof leak and condensation issues.
Yeah, so we're working through at the moment with the contractor, and both Waitara, the landlord, and also obviously at Wānaka as the contractor. So we.
Very good. Thank you, Simon. Let's move on. Did I see Marie online? We've got quite a bit to get through, Marie, so we'll keep this moving through for community partnerships.
No problem. Yeah, I mean, really, this just if you've got any questions, just jump on in, but I'll go through these quickly. We've just had provided a summary of all of the main grants allocated, and really just speaking to the high community need out there, significant requests, but us not being able to meet the level of demand that's out there in the community. We have had a really positive bit of feedback from the funding series we've run across the district, and we plan to continue doing those kinds of capability building workshops in the coming year. In regards to the Creativity, Culture and Heritage Strategy, we're just working on our first annual report, which we're hoping to have available to share in the coming month or so. And that will really look at what we've been delivering over this first year of the strategy, which has really been a bedding in sort of year. We were really pleased with the hui we ran in June. That was really well received by the creative community, and we also connected in with our Economic Futures team and a lot of the people working in that creative space. So there was a nice crossover there into economic development. We've got a piece of work that we're hoping to finish off soon around being able to share a public GIS map of all of the heritage assets we have in the district. This piece of work, we're just sort of doing some final tidy ups and hoping to have that as an online resource soon. And then some projects we're currently working on, which you'll start to see some information coming out about, is the Creative Spaces project, which is a public art exhibition. We're trying to encourage local artists and businesses to collaborate around public art and having public art in interesting or unexpected places. And then we've also been talking about how to start to elevate the heritage aspects of what we do in our community, and this is done in a lot of districts across the country where they have a heritage festival. So we're starting off quite light this year with our first heritage festival, Lakes District Heritage Festival, starting on the 20th of October through to the 2nd of November, and that also dips into the cemeteries and crematoria week at the end of October. So we're sort of extending that, and then we're just working on a bit of a program of events and social media and sharing some of our stories through that period.
Yep.
Do you want to go into any questions on that? So before I go into say that again, sorry, I couldn't quite hear that.
Tracking well, with no questions at this stage.
No question. Great. If we go to the next slide, please. So the next one's just on the Welcoming Communities Plan. We've had a really great uptake around the Newcomers Guide. The team are getting out there trying to connect with a number of different organisations and schools and really get buy-in around using this resource. So that's going well. The libraries, Wānaka Libraries, just starting the Social English Language program. And yeah, that's getting some good uptake initially, and then we are working on a range of initiatives with Community Link to deliver over the coming year. And so those will be things like settlement workshops and working together on the Welcoming Day, which is during Welcoming Week coming up in September. We've had some really good engagement with our smaller communities. We've listed there all the different visits that our Mayor and Chief Executive have done over the last few months. And then obviously Simon worked with Abby and our team to have a meeting with the Upper Clutha Community Association chairs, and that was we had some great feedback from that. So Simon, yeah, keen to find out if you obviously want to continue those sort of things. If the board wants to continue that in the future, we'd be keen to hear more about that. And the Welcoming, the Community Wellbeing Program, there's a range of things going on there around community grants. We've got some more fun projects looking at how we can support our members who have dogs to bring their dogs along when they're using some of our facilities. So that's a bit of a fun project with Sport and Rec. And then on a more serious note, we're working on a bit of a referral pathway for anyone in our community who might be identified as potentially homeless. And sometimes we get those requests coming through to council and we need to refer those on to agencies. So we're just looking at how we can be more consistent in the approach we take to making those referrals to local agencies. Any questions on those? Nope.
No.
Okay,
Marie,
great.
Tracking well.
Thanks.
Thank you. This is very helpful.
Okay, great. And then if we go to the next slide, this is something we've talked to you about quite recently. So look, I won't go into too much detail, but we're in our planning phase for getting the responsible camping program up and running again for the coming summer. We'll be recruiting our ambassadors as we did last summer, and we've just listed there a number of the stats from what we saw last summer. So this is a really effective education campaign and program, so we'll be doing the same, and obviously we're waiting to see the outcome of our draft bylaw at the moment, so that will dictate what we have to do with things like signage and getting ready with the communication program that we'll need to run through summer to educate people about whatever the outcome is from that bylaw process. And then if you can just go on to the any questions on that at the moment?
I was just going to submissions close tomorrow, don't they? I think so. It's the final call on freedom camping submissions.
They do. We've had 204 submissions so far, but we're anticipating usually in the last couple of days you get a bit of a run. So we'll anticipate getting a few more today and tomorrow. So yeah, if there's any questions on that, obviously there'll be more to come pretty soon. Once we'll have our next week or so, we'll be deep in analysing all of those submissions for the report for council. So that's it from me.
Any questions?
pretty wide ranging. So appreciate the hard work that's been done. Is anyone across all the community services updates?
I think it's not so much a question, but it's just in terms of the consultation on the bylaw. There's a lot of misunderstanding in the community about what we're trying to achieve, and the feedback seems to be that we're trying to facilitate rather than restrict or control. I really think we need to look at that messaging so that we show this is the carte blanche at the moment, and what we're trying to do is control it rather than facilitate it. I think that would be really important if we can get that message across to the community somehow.
We are trying our best to do that. We have to be very careful that the Freedom Camping Act is permissive. So there is a real balance between that and saying we're here to restrict freedom camping. So I understand what you're saying, but we are putting that messaging out there. But I'll talk to comms about what else we can do to ensure people understand the role that councils can and can't play in managing freedom camping.
Thanks, Marie.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks for stepping for Ken. And I appreciate the hard work that everyone's doing in the team. So well done.
Good. Thanks.
Thank you.
We're going to have a lunch break, but as I said, I think we're going to roll straight into the Wānaka Lakefront Development Stage 6 ideation session. So let's do that. Kat, you're going to lead. Oh, Brianna's here. Kia ora, Brianna. Haven't seen you for a while. Good to see you. So Georgia, we'll have a break, Georgia, after this, so in about half an hour's time. Yeah, cool. So, Kat, what would you like to achieve? What would be the outcome you're looking for from this kororo over the next half an hour or so?
I'll go. Yeah, so I guess it's just a bit of an introduction from me. So I guess over the last 3 years, we've been sort of getting requests to undertake small, minor things over, and that's come about from pressure from use and a whole range of things. And we've been largely reactive to that. When we bring those things here, we often there's often discussion about maybe the need for some larger planning, and maybe around the Wānaka Lakefront, extending that whole section on that planning sort of approach. So I've asked the team to come along and just sort of prompt a discussion. Okay? It's also probably to get a little bit of direction from the board about what they want to do, so we can manage it at site, but also think about it if we want to go and do some wider planning, start thinking about it in terms of the next long-term plan. So Kat's going to lead us through it, and then just go from there. Thanks, Dave.
Do you want me to talk through the slides, or?
Well, I don't know. We've sort of all seen the slides. Do you want to talk through them? No. I'm just a conscious. Look, it was a succinct set of slides. So why don't we just why don't you pose some questions to us, Kat? And
I guess so. The main question from us is, do you want to stick with the status quo scenario that we've got going on, where issues come up and we address those with small changes, or do you want us to look at some more formal planning, look at trying to get a project into the long-term plan and consider that area as a bit of a stage 6, applying those same principles that we've used along the rest of the lakefront, to kind of focus that planning and more formalizing that area effectively.
I think Linda might have an opinion on that.
Yes, I did just, I think it's probably the last slide, I think, Kat, where you come into that question. And I did sort of where you're going into maybe a procurement of design, and I did have a question around that, where you begin formal planning for landscape plan and really understanding what you're meaning by that, because these little bits and pieces have been done through engineering rather than landscape architecture, and we are talking, a significant piece of our landscape lakefront. And so are you talking that you will be in 2027 maybe aiming to look at going through a tender process for design, or through landscape architecture, or have you an idea of what that actually formal planning is at this point?
So at the moment, we haven't given any thought about that to that extent. So we're just asking a bit of direction. But do you want us to do the formal thing, or do you just want us to keep this a bit more responsive? So if you did want us to go away and do some more planning, maybe formal planning, we may go away and do some thinking about that.
Yeah.
what that means.
Because I think it would be a real tragedy, had to have left out what we're calling now stage 6 from the wider master planning implementation of the lakefront development plan, and seeing that as something we can kind of tack on and do a little bit here and there and end up with things that might not be well designed to last the next 50, 75 years, so that was just really my question around fundamentally.
I'm in agreement. The reasons for leaving that area out, the context has changed a little bit, probably by a number of years, and so that's why we're back here thinking, should we now think about including it?
Yeah, so therefore that statement is exactly where I was getting at with the lakefront development plan being 10 years old and needing to be reconsidered before stage 4. Now we're talking about stage 6. So, I think at some point that master plan document needs to be maybe reconsidered, looked at, because it is 10 years and we do things completely different to what we would have been doing 10 years ago. And you're coming into the very crown of what will be the lakefront development plan, and also the farthest other end of it, which you could end up with just really segmented, fragmented, poorly designed crown of the lakefront, which would be, I think, a very sad outcome.
So I'm in support of a more structured, higher level approach to this. I feel it's whack-a-mole at the moment. We sort out the mound and then we get cars, so then we put the fencing in and then that pushes stuff down to there, and then we're down at the wagon wheel doing something, and then the puddle gets fixed and it's just not working. And so there's all these interdependencies. So we have done really well when you look at the other parts, when we have taken a higher level, more considered approach and had a plan. And I think that shows with just the engagement and the use of, say, stage 2. If you look at stage 3, been amazing. I would think that, and stage 6 is quite unique because it's got so many different uses to it. It's got so many different established trees. It's got more established trees than anywhere else. It's got the playground. It's got the water sports facility. It's got the toilet block and the showers. It's where the lake really comes up really close to where people are using it. So it seems to me, in a simplistic view, I think it'll be remiss of us to just keep whack-a-moling these various different issues rather than saying this is what that part of the lakefront could look like, and let's aim to deliver that through the long-term plan. So that would be my opinion.
Look, I support a holistic view of it. I would say that I think this is a less formal treatment than the other sections. So I don't want to get into a super expensive, super formal outcome here. I think we've got to, but managing the issues, continuity of the path and the access, the environmental enhancement, protection of the trees, the understanding the uses and how they conflict and interact. I mean, all those things are very valid way to holistically look at this piece of land, but I don't see it as being as formal as stage 2 or stage 3 or stage 4 will be.
I think it's easy to say that in hindsight, and when you start actually working on the lakefront, it's been, the addition and the value added to the community for, say, take stage 2, where the usable space increased from 500 square metres to 1,500 square metres. And I think
against the success of those at all.
No, I'm not suggesting you are, but I think once you get into the complexity of the levels, for example, from where the toilet block is back to where the sports facility building is, you've got a huge variation of requirement there from just ground up. And so, whilst you say you don't want an intensive review, I think it deserves.
No, that's not what I said. I said I don't want a formal treatment.
I'm sorry.
I didn't say intensive review at all. I said I don't think of. My fear is that we'll end up with a very formalised space, and I see this as a less formalised space.
As in visual.
Yeah, visually.
Yeah.
And less intrusive treatment. So less concrete, less car parking, less. I see it as an more informal space.
Sure. Okay, but that's getting into it. I think I think the key thing is that we're purposeful about doing that. So that's what we end up. Just as something is structured and planned doesn't mean it has to be formalised. In fact, it can be actually the opposite. That it's actually designed not to be like that.
Yeah, I think the putting the rocks down in the community pulled back pretty hard. I think there's some loud voices, so I don't really want to go through that again. I think the being able to come up with consensus and show the overall vision and do it through a design lens that's holistic is the right approach. So I'm supportive of how I look at things in that aspect. To pursue something more holistic again. Yeah. That's it.
I think what Cody just said, basically.
Easy.
But yeah, I mean, it just makes sense.
It's a piece of the lakefront that is less formal and that it is well used. You know, my concern is, I guess, if we have a grand plan, we tend to focus on the grand plan at a cost. And you know, when you look at some of the, I suppose, the eastern work that's been done, it's actually worked well. They improved access, the bridge, regrassing it. You know, we didn't need a grand plan to do that, but it's made a huge difference. So, you know, I think
I guess that's why we're here, Barry. That's exactly that. You know, so
you know, I think it's just evolving quite nicely, and you know, to have some grand expensive plan may not achieve anything more than what we're getting done now.
So, turn of view, John. What's your thoughts?
I support a formal plan, but I do share concerns that we don't go over the top with this. It is to say that the last more natural bit of that lakefront, but it's also the area that is only bit now that has uncontrolled parking that gets totally out of control in the heart of summer. Cars can actually access the beach there and block the track, block the desire line walking along the top of the beach. So there's definitely a need to plan it. But I think we need not to go to such a high level that we end up making it look like the rest of the lakefront. And I also think we need to be still able to react to short-term problems that come up in the meantime. It shouldn't be one or the other. We should go for a plan, but still have the flexibility to deal with any issues that turn up in the meantime, provided they don't jeopardise the overall plan.
I was going to say, reinforce that, because we don't want to get to a point where we've got a plan coming in 3 or 4 years' time, therefore we don't do anything. It's just
I agree. I wasn't suggesting that. I was thinking there will be things that we can't foresee and we'll need to react. I guess what we're thinking is, do we want to just keep on doing that, or do we want to put a little bit of structure around it? So just looking for a little bit.
I think we need some structure.
So Lyle's comment to me when he sent through notes was he wouldn't support doing a formalised stage 6 plan if it was going to impact the delivery of the stage 4 pathway. Are they connected at all? Is doing one going to
pathway?
So what we've asked you to go away and to do the detailed design for the stage 4 pathway. Is any movement on stage 6 going to impact the continued progress of the stage 4 pathway?
Probably in terms of, is he asking in a finance sense?
Financially, resources, I suppose, is what he's.
No, I don't think so. I think this is very, very beginnings, and I think we've well cruised down.
I don't think that was. I'm passing on his question. I think where the consensus is that being intentional about where we want this to get to is desired, but we don't want to put it through a complicator. We don't want it to huge scope creep, which we know that we're party to doing that because we've seen that happening. We can actually have a structured plan to make things deliberately look informal and that. So I think that's the sort of some of the principles that are coming through there. There are some things that haven't been addressed, like the trees are getting parked on and that's going to have root damage and stuff like that. So it's not as if we're solving every problem that comes up. There are some problems there. There's problems with the pathway going through, the informal pathway. We can't say that it's sort of perfect until the next problem comes up. So we have given you some direction that when we see a problem, we're going to try and address it. But the sooner we can have a slightly broader, intentional plan about where this is heading, I think would be helpful.
Just in terms of scope, really, on the presentation, we put the boundary as the Wānaka Water Sports Bridge. I've used that as a sort of a natural delineation. I'm not seeing it go any further. Okay. Well,
there is an argument for that, and there is an argument that we could go as far as the entrance to Station Park, for instance, because I think that's under optimised at the moment. The connection between the lakefront and Station Park isn't fantastic.
Where does QLC land end in ORC begin?
Good question. I know it's contiguous with Station Park. I know that much. And obviously we've done a little bit of path on the other side of Stony Creek, so it'd be silly to exclude that. I'd go far as Station Park boundaries.
I guess that's why I mentioned it, because, you know, straight away we've got a little bit of...
Yeah, I know. But if you're going to go about a holistic planning, and I can't see, you know, Wānaka Tree is one of the most intensive visitors points, but we're not actually planning on looking at how we manage that in this plan. So I would include those because they feed into the issues. But I'm probably going to go down the road of actually planning. You may as well
Consider the tree, man. Bring it on.
There is some unfortunate.
we can consider removing it. You mean?
Let's take that out of scratch.
I've been talking with Kakano about around the double sculpture as well, about what they want to do.
Yeah, okay. I think that's a good call. I think that we're not talking about scope creep, as when we start designing it, we go, right, we've got this, how about this, how about that? So it's less about where the scope is at the moment, but I think both Linda and Quentin have raised a really good point there, that a lot of people come into that car park at the water sports facility to go to the double sculpture. Okay, so to ignore that would be that, and then that link from the Royce Bay start of the pathway up to Wānaka Station Park is not, you wouldn't even know that it doesn't really make sense. So I think there is pushing that further to include both access to Wānaka Station Park and the use of, well, the tourist use of that Wānaka tree would make sense. Because without that, other we're making decisions around design here, when actually it's being driven by something over here. So
I wasn't set on that. I just put that down as
I think it's good. And then the other end, the eastern edge, is obviously the McDougall toilet, which is where stage 2 finished. So that would make sense.
So what I'm hearing is, yes, go away and do some formalised planning, but try and keep the informal nature of it. You know,
I think as you go through that scope, you know, I think we'll identify, you know, that the issues are really well identified through the lakefront management, the foreshore management plan, continuous access, naturalness, public use, commercial, you know, how we deal with commercial, all they're really well identified through those two documents. So I think they're the guidance, but, you know, you come back and say, look, I'm pretty sure we'd want to see a bridge across the McDougall Street, or the Stone Street drainage there, for instance, because at the moment it's got a pretty average culvert. I think we'd want to put some sort of bridge across that and improve that drainage. I think there's some key themes.
Yeah.
We're already into designing it.
You can pull out some really key themes from the community board quite quickly once you get to that stage. So,
I think we've got enough feedback. Thanks, Simon. Appreciate it.
Just, can I ask Dave one question? I've seen contractor Dave down there with a track excavator thing going along the pathway. What's he up to?
Down on the lakefront.
Yeah, in that
Yeah,
area.
so that's the pathway that Dave updated on in the last session. The fence that's going to go all the way from the Mount Aspiring car park to the water sport.
Yeah. I say title, but I didn't ask you what it's going to cost. It's laying out something.
We're just putting the little post and chain fence in along.
Perfect. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that'll be helpful for the whole area really parking wise.
Yeah. One key learning I got around the mound in Stony Creek was, and I'm hoping you guys learn as well, it's like, it's going to be impossible you know, it's going to be possible to stop parking. It's going to be impossible. We can't regrass it and that sort of thing. And we've ended up with a really practical spot. And I think it just shows that actually what is actually possible around there. There did seem to be thing, you know, I heard that, you know, we couldn't even regrass it. And you look at it now, it's amazing. So, yeah, so I do think that, you know, once we just sort of go, well, how can we do this? We work with the art of the possible. It's amazing result we get for little cost, and it's really transformed that area.
It's
So
just a management issue. They're going back to when it was first done.
Yeah. You know, the other feedback was a couple of picnic tables in that on that grassed area now would really differentiate the use of that space really well. You know, people come over and have sit down, have a lunch while they're waiting for their bus to come back or whatever.
Yeah, we'll go to the tile.
I don't know. And I mean, the other thing, they've got that row of benches there at the moment. Does the chain fencing enable you to repurpose those benches? You know,
Which benches?
you know, the ones next to the playground at the moment?
So the post and chain fence is going to go along the road side.
Yeah, yeah.
So I guess it probably shouldn't really affect those benches.
Anyway, well, I'll take that offline.
anything else, team? Well done. Really constructive conversation. So when will we get something back from you as to understanding what this got? It would be good if you reflected back, because you're very good at doing that. They came back and sort of say, this is what we heard, this is what we're planning. Are we aligned? Even by email.
Yeah, we might probably just have to take it away and let it get digest it a bit. There's quite a lot of feedback.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about what you were saying about looking at the tanks. It's 10 years old and have we reflected in. So
Well, just for these two, if this stage was coming in as stage 6 and we're yet to do design or have any feedback on, you know, high level concept for stage 4, I just think there's so many community groups that want to be involved with that discussion around design that, you know, it'd be an interesting one to reconsider. You know,
Brian has been sitting in the background asking comes to listen to the feedback directly.
yeah.
And so we'll just have to go away and research it.
Yep.
I think
Look, it would just be nice for you to come back even at the next workshop for the new community board and just do something around this and say, this is what we heard, this is what we're planning, just get some feedback. Just keep this current.
Yeah, but mention that was one of the reasons why we targeted, so we could take it to the new community board.
Yeah. So let's schedule it for the next quarterly update. That this is a standalone piece outside of the community services update, adjacent, and sort of say this is what, because it's a very visual part, and you know, yes, cool,
Awesome.
Well,
Thanks.
Steve.
Thank you.
Good question. Is the transport team, they aware that we're heading slightly ahead of schedule? Like, have they left Queenstown? Lee's here. So Lee's here. Anyone out? Who else are you waiting for, Lee? No, not now. No. We're all good. So you guys are here, so we can. Okay. So we're going to have the break. Let's have a 20-minute break. We would normally be here, but he's on the other side of the hill. Okay. Barry won't be too far away. Here he goes now. All good. What would you like to achieve from this session, Sophie? Let me just pretext that. I've sent out, we have received the updated proposal in the background information. I think all of us have been out to Wastebusters and done a tour recently, and then we had the other presentation from Andrew Hill, was it?
The refuse transfer station.
So we feel like we are across that sort of space quite well. So the preference probably isn't to go through an nth degree around this. What would you like to get out of today's session?
Some feedback on the letter of intent and your potential commitment towards that I can then take to a council meeting, noting that there's a time sensitivity for Wastebusters to receive the letter of intent.
Yes.
For us to work with them to look at options. And also, I'd probably really like to get some feedback. In particular, in the slide pack, there's a page there with some of the risks and benefits and some of the things, I guess, that I'd like to highlight that we need to consider if we are moving towards developing this letter of intent for that council consideration. I'm very happy to fly through the slides and pull out any kind of points.
Well, we won't fly through. Gina, has there been when a lot of us met with you, there was a conversation with MFE that was progressing but hadn't been put into the formal thing. Is there any update?
Yes, we received a letter on Tuesday saying we're now in that formal process, which is great. And so the clock's ticking because that's a 3-month process, which will conclude, I think it's the 6th of November. And at that time, our application becomes formal, and we can have no further kind of negotiation after that point. So that was then be considered.
So that's good news.
Right.
So it's good news, but nervous, you say. So the good news is that MFE want to have discussions with providing funding, external funding to the proposal, but you've got 90 days to get all the conditions precedent, all the other things lined up. Let's go around the table. Has anyone got any general questions at the moment to bring everyone up to speed regarding the proposal?
Pretty fair on what's the proposal, and I know we'll talk about risks and that wider stuff later. Was that something that we're happy to have a public discussion? Given that this meeting's recorded.
Sure. I think it's a general awareness of some of those risks, rather than any specifics.
Yeah.
So the general conversations about that.
Yes.
So the key thing at the moment is that MFE to support require a letter of intent. Can you just give some context as to what that has to say or what's being looked for by MFE?
So we are obviously seeking funding to design and build a new facility for Wastebusters. So what they're looking, my understanding, and obviously we're only just starting the negotiations for 3 months, but my understanding is it would be a commitment from the council to provide the land. It doesn't have to be a specific piece of land, but a recognition of the value of what Wastebusters is providing, that it's aligned with council's objectives, and there's an intent to provide the land. Also recognising that there are some things such as the Wānaka RTS that have to be clear before a specific site can be allocated and signed.
Okay. So for what's some of the challenges internally in council at the moment that's for the letter of intent not to be a straightforward exercise?
It's largely coming from the legal advice that we've taken on what that commitment means, noting that I think we all understand a letter of intent is intent, but it isn't a full commitment to expand site availability. And there's a nuance there that perhaps Wastebusters and MFE need to understand, that we aren't committing to a specific piece of land, but we are exploring the option to expand the use of Valentine. That's the intention.
Yeah, so intending to explore and intention to provide are two different things. So I'm not sure if you got here. I'm just trying to get to the nub as to why this much loved and really important part of the Wānaka community, with a big piece of space there, what's preventing a letter of intent from council to provide the land, as opposed to signing a lease or a contract or anything else like that? Is there a concern that the land won't actually be there?
Obviously, our master planning exercises at a really high level have shown that there's room for the RTS redevelopment. There's room for the green waste to continue operating in probably a different area, that there's the potential for a large piece of land to be available for a MRF, and that there's still some land available that could allow for expansion of Wastebusters. It's a very high level light touch master plan exercise. So it's about space, not designated specific areas. That won't be clear for quite a few months yet. So the definitive where could Wastebusters expand to isn't clear. Then there's the element of we have not yet talked with council about the provision of a letter of intent, and that letter of intent does have a really tight time frame so that it can fit with the ministry's pipeline timeline and that application. So we have an agenda slot available for the September meeting, beginning of October meeting. But what I'm seeking is any additional information that I can take to council that indicates the board's position on our relationship and our desire to work with waste buses in the future in expanding operations.
Before I throw it open to everyone, Gina, just are we talking, because I understand that MFE may provide some funding, or that's what we're hoping, and that you've spoken to some community trusts as well. So there's a portfolio of potential funders. Are we talking hundreds of thousands of dollars?
No, we are talking multiple millions of dollars. It's a big, 10 to 20 is a project cost, total project cost we're looking to raise.
So you're suggesting to me that if this letter of intent doesn't go forward, then we could be missing out on north of $10 million worth of funding for this project?
Yes, because MFE currently would be the cornerstone funder.
Sure.
And
I know it might be commercially sensitive, so I'm not expecting you to talk about that.
I would say that other funders who we've been talking to over the past 2 years, who are very positive about this project and the benefit to the community, are very interested with the provision of having a cornerstone funder in place. So it's not just about the MFE funding, it's actually about other funding that will be contingent on that being in place.
So to sum it up, you could say that the Wānaka community could miss out on north of $10 million worth of funding for a really important community asset and recycling facility, etc. here, if the letter of intent is not signed at the 9th of October meeting of the QLDC Council.
Yes.
Yeah. Barry, what's your thoughts on things?
Yeah, I suppose it's a bit frustrating that we've got a key facility that I can say only see benefits for, but we've got this bigger picture with other influences that are affecting our ability to be able to move forward and make a quick decision. So somebody can navigate me around that one. I'm very appreciative, but that is it. I think we've got a very complicated situation that shouldn't be.
Why shouldn't it be?
Well, I think, in my view, the recovery facility is crucial. But we're looking at the bigger picture, and fair enough, potential for birth and so forth. There's other, needs for the site, but it is a big site. This big area of land, Quentin might be able to remind us that there's quite a few 5 hectares or something.
The previous acquisition in 23 was 8 hectares. Yeah. And that isn't inclusive of the whole site. I can't remember what the entire site is.
So it's a 20-acre block of land. So it should be able to make a decision.
Linda, what's your thought?
I just wonder what the concerns or the risks are that QLDC have for not signing in either a MOU or letter of intent.
So one of those is around the potential direct negotiation with one party without the consultation of the community or other parties who may have an interest in using a piece of council land for similar activity, so waste minimisation related activity. And we haven't explored those opportunities that other commercial or community users may have some proposals that we've not considered.
It's a really, really important point. I think just as exciting as this is, and I think we'll agree it's exciting, is just to make sure we put a QLDC hats on and make sure that we're thinking about the wider community and that bit of land is could have other uses. It's something just for us to consider as we navigate this space before we go too far with one way.
What was the intent of QLDC when they bought the land?
Waste related activity.
And how many other waste-related activities do we have in the community?
In the wider community, there are other commercial and smaller community-based organisations that deliver services either privately or on behalf of council related to waste.
And is Wastebusters actively resourcing whether they would be suitable tenants for that land, or what's your feeling around the competition in your realm?
I guess I just come back to the WMP that we were part of the process, and I know that the most common mention in that whole process was Wastebusters and the need for land and the support for land, and we'd like to see something like that in Queenstown. So I feel that the 25-year track record and the community support kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just wondering what you can do to strengthen that analysis, I guess, from the community's perspective, and understanding and seeing the pressure that Wastebusters is under on site now is, and for the next 10 years, it's going to be huge, and missed opportunities and all sorts of things within that. So I'm wondering, just between now and October, how you can, or whether you're actively resourcing, strengthening your position regarding that. And I guess this is part of it.
Yeah.
Well, we do have a community celebration that we're planning for our 25th birthday, which is this year. And as part of that, we did think that would be a very good opportunity to engage the community in the vision and to hear more about, we know what we'd like to see at the facility, but it'd be really great to hear what the community wants to see as well. So that will be happening potentially in September. We haven't set a date, towards the end of September. So that may be a great opportunity to.
It's interesting
some of
that
those
the Lakes Arts Trust 25th anniversary in the same month. Maybe you kind of combine and we do recycled sculpture out of
keen on that.
Noting to your point around community consultation, whilst it wasn't directly about the services and the activity that Wastebusters provides, the recent WMP consultation, more than say half of those submissions commented on the value of Wastebusters and supported expansion of land to Wastebusters. We got over 65 submissions, and there was very strong.
Didn't ask for that.
I'll go and table John. Excellent. I'm really struggling to see why this is even an issue in terms of a letter of intent for council. I was there for the opening of Wastebusters. I've watched it grow. It's a nationally leading organisation providing recycling and waste minimisation. Council has bought a huge chunk of land. It's designated for community services. This is the definition of a community service. Yes, I can understand the council can't say you can have X bit of land, but I really struggle to see when you've got that huge bit of land that we can't provide a letter saying, yes, we confirm that this amount of land will be available for you somewhere within this area, just to enable this process to continue. It's a no-brainer, and I'd like to think this community would wholeheartedly stand behind that position in recommending to council that that letter of intent be granted.
I'm not sure that. Sorry, John. Why we're actually having to sort of garner this support, because it's endemic in the community. It's much loved. We've got a climate action and biodiversity plan that talks about, this is a really tangible thing we can do. It's got a track record of 25 years. It's a great employer. It's got a really strong trust. All we need to do is update that Paradiso bloody ad about Wastebusters. I know Quentin's in there, and I look at the kids there, and they're almost having kids themselves, and they're still on that ad. That's the only thing that annoys me about Wastebusters. Like, please change your ad. Every time we go, it's a pretty good thing. And if that's the only thing that annoys you about Wastebusters, just the ad at Paradiso again. But in seriousness, how could we have an example where we had about $700,000 worth of funding available through Transport Choices to complete a pathway through the marina, and that was at risk. And we got in behind, and Cody drove a lot of that as well, and the councillors to sort of say, why are we leaving money on the table? That was $700,000. We've got to put it in. It's working really well. It was money that wouldn't have been available for us again. we've got over $10 million here for a core piece of infrastructure, and we're worried about what some possible commercial interest might get offended by that. This is a community asset. This is proven. This is deeper than a commercial side of things. We're asking for a letter of intent. If the fundamental premise of that letter of intent changes, then the intention can change. But in the absence, we seem to be going around here dancing around like some nervous Nellies about making an actual decision around this. And I'm not sure how you'd come back to the community and say, we had our opportunity, we missed it, and see you later, 10 mil plus. No, let's keep dilly-dallying around this for years. So I am fully in support of us working very hard and explaining to council and the rest of the councillors that don't live in this community how important this is to Wānaka and the Upper Clutha.
Yeah, well, just in a couple of comments. The one is that if not here, but then where? Because really, there's no alternative sites on the table at this point in time. And you know, as it's indicated, this was certainly in mind when we purchased the land and went out of our way to make that provision. Totally agree that we've got to look way beyond Wastebusters as just being another tenant or another opportunity. They are a partner and absolutely integral to the delivery of the waste minimisation outcomes. I mean, we have no money set aside for construction, demolition waste other than to work with someone like Wastebusters to deliver that outcome, and that is one of the priorities of the waste minimisation plan. This is the only way, the only pathway we have to deliver that in the Upper Clutha at the moment. So I mean, I don't need to repeat, is that we've just got to find a way to work as a partner and support this. It can't be viewed in the same context as any other, potential partner that council have. This is far different to that.
I feel like you're going to one up everybody. By the time it gets there, you're going to be yelling at you. No, I think yeah, I mean, this has been obvious to everybody, and I think, there is just emphatic support run for reason, because you can't manufacture culture, and it takes, 25 plus years to have that sort of license. And I think, going through the WMMP process and understanding just how crucial that partnership is to deliver on the other 80% of, the waste stream that goes on. This is an obvious decision that I feel like it's the perfect timing. So much of this is all coming to a head. As a council, we're investing in waste, and really sincerely, I think this is a really core part of that investment, because it acknowledges that we aren't everything to everybody. And this allows us to utilize something that's got enormous value and will have enormous value back to the community by the amount of diversion that it makes as well. So there's no stress or lack of convincing. I'm fully supportive.
I mean, Wastebusters is every Wānaka person's DNA. And I would suggest that it's the one thing that everyone in Wānaka agrees that they like, and it works well. It's sometimes a bit busy, I can't too far away, but it's great. And then you look at the people that come here on working holiday visas, and they buy entire house lots of the skis that come out in Morals and things like that, and they love it. And $2 in paper, so yeah. Not to mention the fact that I'm still paying less for my rubbish removal at the cafe 20 years later than I was paying with this. To be fair, the previous people just threw hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month.
It's always a cafe story.
Of course. Shall I give the name as well?
I think the environmental vandalism for this not to go ahead, and I'm just not sure how council.
I love it.
I just don't know. It's environmental vandalism.
Yeah.
if this doesn't go through, how could council stand up and say that we are true to waste minimisation, to a climate action and biodiversity plan, that we're true to the Wānaka community, and the investment that this will bring? This letter of intent needs to be signed. and it is a letter of intent. It is not signing a lease. Unanimous.
I was going to say, I think obviously the key for us is obviously targeting council meeting, but the reason we came here is just to obviously explain where things are at and listen to your views and thoughts.
Do you want us to make them a little clearer?
I think is it fair to say they're pretty clear? Yeah, they're pretty clear.
What I can suggest is on behalf of the board that the chair writes to the council and the chief executive to express that level of support and
Can this be dealt with by delegated authority rather than?
It's an interesting question.
Just given that the community board could have autonomy over.
Well, even under the existing delegations of property and infrastructure and you know, the property team and various things. I mean, an interesting question, but we can certainly express that as strongly as we can and follow that up. So
I'm concerned for Wastebusters being put in a position of negotiation that as it longer that goes on, that there is this murkiness and lack of clarity from this, that it just means that funding is put at risk. If we can come out sooner rather than later and say there is a letter of intent to make this happen. Yes, there are some moving parts, they will understand that. But at the moment, we seem to be fostering this sense of trepidation and stuff about even giving a letter of intent. Well, that message going into negotiation, which it is with MFE, force, up to around 7 figures of money is big stuff. And we should be making that for our community as easy road as possible for the work that Wastebusters is doing.
Council should be falling over themselves to do that letter of intent.
And as I said, we're trying to get to the point of what's our next steps from here. And I mean, you can certainly reflect that. I will directly follow up with the chief executive myself to make that argument by phone. So.
Okay, so here's action. So the councillors can continue to do your lobbying, and I think it's important that councillors and Lyle will be in behind this as well, that you're bringing your fellow councillors that don't reside in the Upper Clutha on the journey with this as well, because it will be a collective decision, bringing them up to speed. I think that as officers or as staff, you will be able to very quickly go back and share the sentiment, the unanimous sentiment of the community board, who are elected to speak on behalf of the community. The third thing is I will draft a note as well to formalise what we've talked to here and send that through to the CEO and to the Mayor this week or close of business tomorrow to again reinforce the pace and urgency that we have around this.
Much appreciated. I think that's given me really strong signal feedback. So I look forward to hearing about the discussion re delegated authority. There's an alternative pathway to the taking the whole paper to council. And we appreciate your consideration and look forward to further discussions with this.
Wonderful. Well, good too.
Yeah.
Well done. Thank you, Sophie. Yeah, cheers, Sophie. Thanks, Gina.
Yep.
You gotta sit in the hot seat, man. Yeah. Clockwise, and then you're second only to Chris.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit here, John. I think I'm lonely. Now we haven't met before, have we? Oh, Jeremy. Yeah, cool. So Jeremy, did we, when you were at your last employer, did we meet down on the State Highway 84 job?
Yeah, we did.
Yes. Yes, yeah, when we were doing, I think we might have been there as well when we were trying to get NZTA to put the pathway down the side. Yeah, cool.
Jeremy Martin started with us, been 3 months?
Yeah.
3 months, and Tony's team as a senior network engineer, transport space.
Right.
Brought along because he's lots of knowledge around here particularly, so it'll be helpful to get him involved in these conversations as well as see his face around these conversations as they progress.
My name's Tony, and thanks for coming on. So look, again, it was a really long, and this is what we've done with all the workshops. I have asked specifically to all elected members to read in advance, and I understand that that's happened. So I think we'll take the paper as read, but there is 3 key components to this. There is the network optimization part, there is the wayfinding part, and there is the travel demand / parking management part. What would be helpful for you, Tony, or from this conversation? What would you like to get out of today's conversation?
Very much this is about just bringing you up to speed with what we have in front of us at the moment, where it sits in the longer view. Team is about that sort of long-term planning rather than the immediate delivery. So just to set out what we're currently working on, phases we're at, it's all leading to. So really trying to make sure that you're aware of what our team does and what we've got in training.
Yes, and I think when we read through, we could see the depth, and I know that a lot of it was focused just on Upper Clutha, and I know you've still got another whole geography over the other side of the hill, which is a challenge as well. Do we have questions? I wanted to talk about that network optimization piece of work. What's your 30-second summary, Tony, on that before I throw that open to the team to explore some more?
Network optimization is the piece that has really strung on from several attempts to bring master planning and supportive funding from our transport planners through to where we actually get to the stage we can go ahead and deliver those elements. So this is the follow-on from the master plan for Wānaka for transport. And as we've defined more and more or cascaded down into project levels, then we've tried to bring forward as much information as we can. Partway through that work, we all identified our transport partners that we don't have the funding in the current rounds of LTPs. So completing a business case in that environment is unlikely to produce anything because no one can commit to it. Year 7, I think, was the furthest. That was the first implementation. So what we've done with the network optimization is take everything we've got that's already in that process and see how we can use it to the best effect. Modeling, design, discussion about how we identify projects, interventions for the next 30 years. And that's the work we've done in these first 2 bundles of documents here, a strategic case and the economic case. They would never be fully complete until we got to the end of the formal business case. So we're curtailing here. But what it has done is allow us a 30-year program for Wānaka Clutha that we can bring into the long-term plan, put that in the mix with all the other transport projects.
You saw the corridors and the intersections and the active transport needs. Was there anything that surprised you, Tony? Was there anything that you looked at and thought, oh, I wasn't aware of this, or anything that came out?
Not that I wasn't aware. It mirrors the difficulties we have elsewhere in a positive way. That we do a lot of work in Queenstown, Whakatipu, that is already past the opportunity. Lots of opportunity still sits here. Wānaka Clutha. The problems are coming. We can see them building. So that's a really good piece of this work. But also the really strong sense of community. Walking and cycling is already having an impact on how it slowed the need for those interventions. So that's what came over very, very strongly from the work we've done.
Has anyone got any questions around that network optimization piece of work? This was the single stage business case that we talked about for many, many years. It was going to have a public transport component to it, but that got a little bit stripped away because of a number of reasons, funding partly, and at that stage there was no ORC inclination to do anything, even though that's changed, which is helpful. Is there any questions that anyone has around the network?
Just wondered, Tony, if I may, the corridor implementations, there's a piece of land here that runs along the golf course and properties here in 3 parts. That has a 20-metre setback to the boundaries of the golf course and the private landowners on this side. That's got potential to be a beautiful greenway space. That doesn't seem to be earmarked on here, because that could be a really easy access way straight through rather than going through the busyness of 3 parts that comes out at State Highway 84.
Sorry, my eyes aren't quite that good.
Are you talking along the side of the golf course effectively?
Yeah.
Or
Is that behind McPherson Street?
No.
It's So if you're doing the schools schools through here, there's this strip of land here that has a 20-metre setback from these private landowners and the golf course that isn't showing here as a possibility of an open green space. So it's that link there. Can you post it onto to me?
It's right, means is this piece here, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
There hasn't really even been any discussion around that. I think
It's a
that the,
beautiful piece of land.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful possible green. 20 metres is a large width to be able to do a beautiful green space, which 3 Parks is desperately needing to be created as environmental cooling spaces, etc., walkway, shared path, whatever.
I'd say that at the moment, then, through me a minute, you've marked that on, it's not on here, so it took me a moment to realise that. It's not included at the
No,
moment.
it's not included, but I just think maybe it should be as that land develops and sells, whether or not it's MetLife or whether it's the next landowner who buys that piece of land or jointly. I just see there's potential opportunity for that to be contributed to as a green space, which connects back to the schools to pools. And
it's a really good point. It's a really good point. And I think the focus has been on getting the golf course road roundabout sorted out and the landing there to then allow the schools to pull and that other leg to go into 3 Part. I think if that's sort of been consuming, well, they're actually saying yes, well, and then it's the trees on the golf course, but no one's actually thought about that whole strip that would connect State Highway E4 with the golf course road roundabout.
And it's such a busy connecting place, that roundabout, for cyclists and walkers and everybody else. There's people who don't necessarily want to be in 3 Parks. They want to go from Valentine through to Anderson Road.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful space when you walk along it. It's got huge potential to
Point well made.
Ask Lyle to pick it up with the landowner too.
Yeah.
The developer too, just around what his current master plan.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. Okay.
If I could just,
I don't think there's provision to this master plan.
yeah, just respond to that in a little way. Is that a lot of the work we've done about putting out these high level plans, these network level plans, is that once they are made public and everybody becomes aware, that we do get a lot of people who want to join other dots together as well. So that comes from this type of planning. Once we identify what we need, then there's the extra work that could come in, or the other opportunities that might be raised at the same time.
And there was quite a lot of those opportunities revealed in the Valentine Road master plan. You know, in the sports, there's a lot that's in that master plan document that hasn't come forward, which I think could integrate into this as well. At a lower level, this is still very high level, but I think there are a lot of details in the Valentine Road master planning of the sports fields that show linkages right through to Mount Iron. So there has been a lot of work done previously.
Pause on that. Hey, Cody, go.
I just wanted to pick up on your point previously around, Queenstown had an opportunity growth has, overwhelmed the current infrastructure. There's all this backpedaling. We're looking like we're just a decade behind, but the same thing's going to happen. Do you see that there's any integration with development or growth strategy in order to not overwhelm the infrastructure from a strategic point of view and just keep pumping more? Like the point being with development and planning things like Orchard Road, and then you look at Valentine Road, how the crossings and that integration works. Do you foresee any useful ways that the council could integrate more with planning to create better outcomes, and or not be doomed to suffer the same fate?
I think a lot of the work we put into this is that higher level long-term thinking. One of the bits we do as well as project planning here is work with our spatial planning team to identify what's coming, what we're going to go on to next. So I think if we use all this information for their benefit and vice versa, I think that's where the opportunities will be picked up.
There's this really good point, Tony, around like the structure plan. You guys, particularly councillors, would have seen the one that was done down the Southern Corridor.
Yeah.
Obviously, one Ladies Mile. I think from speaking to Anita, Vanstone, Frankton is the next one we're going to do, and then there'll be equivalents over here, which will start to feed all this information to make sure we're actually planning from an infrastructure perspective rather than just looking at things.
And those are great in before you start. Those are great in theory, but resourcing obviously is going to be restricted, and by the time we get to there, we're already going to start suffering. So that's the point, is that what can we do to not wait until it's already too late?
Yeah.
to be more proactive. So,
yeah, I was just going to reinforce that point. Is that I mean, the Southern Corridor was a perfect example. Is that all the well, look, it's a noble piece of work, the structure plan, and all it's done is reveal that we're about $1 billion short on transport infrastructure, and with no funding and no answers. Now, just further to Cody's point is that we're facing level of service F in a number of locations. That's a completely untenable outcome, including the Albertown Bridge, and including McPherson Street intersection, including there's multiple places. That's network failure. And some of those are within 2 years, some of them within 5 years. We're just not.
We got to shout out at the local government in Z conference. We're talking about infrastructure. And they said, Wānaka is a town of 10 or 15,000 that has bloody traffic problems. It's so ridiculous. So,
we're just sort of we do risk going backwards before we go forwards. But I mean there's no money to deliver a lot of this. We know the extent of the problems. We know
we're on the same boat, and we're all somber to the reality of what funding limitations there are and the other restrictions that are imposed. I'm not saying that you need to have the answers, but if there are other things that you feel like need to be more clearly championed from our perspective as well, like we have an active policy plan showing an appetite to not suffer the same consequence and to be more proactive, then it's just highlighting this there to try and get around.
And I'm sorry, just further to that. There's a couple of sides to this. I think firstly we need to actually start talking about this in real terms of what it is that we have a crisis in delivery of infrastructure, and if we don't, we're going to get network failure. I mean, we've got to be, talking about it in the terms that this data tells us that it's going to occur. Otherwise, we're the other side of it is that are we getting any closer? No, at the moment we're getting further away because government is pushing us further away from being really caring about the delivery of infrastructure as ahead of development or in line with development. They're just going, you must do the development and we'll deal with that later on. And it's just not.
Yeah. One of the drivers of the plan originally was to have evidence and something ready to go should funding become available. And there were opportunities in the last 6 years that we've missed because we haven't had anything available. Does this now put us in a position that if there's a change of government who suddenly decided they wanted to put more funding into active transport, are we ready from this to go to implement some of these projects?
Yes and no answer to that. No, in the fact that this is not an approved business case for investment purposes signed off by our funding partners. Yeah, yes, in the fact that we have prepared evidence-based information to show what is needed, when it is needed, where it needs to be, what it needs to look like. So for that, that's the type of information we used for when I made applications for transport choices, for example. I took the information we had, condensed it into the format, and we were successful in billions of dollars worth of funding being available. Being shovel ready is really important, and a lot of that is not about whether there are formal approvals for projects, it's whether you have the evidence. And for me, we have good amount of modelling here, we have good indications of how things are integrated and the need for them. So we've got a strategic reason to say yes, and we've got a project level to say yes, we would need that. So we are in a good position, maybe not the perfect position.
I think that's a fair comment, Tony, and I think that we would thank you for actually getting us to this point in time. I know we pushed, particularly John and I pushed really hard for the last 6 years to get this, and it became evident as we were going through it that this was never going to be the panacea and the perfect, and part of it was just because of the central government change of focus. But when I look at, say, for instance, when I look at the corridor implementations, it is identified where that real challenge and where those real spots are. And there, as we said, modelling and everything's behind that. So I think that's really helpful. I think from the active travel side of things, when we're projected out to 2043 or to actually 2048, that developers can look at that now. There is actually something that says how, if I'm developing here, how, if they have the intention or the wherewithal to do, how would that bolt into this? I think we've been very good at saying this is what we've got at the moment. This is actually showing where it might look like in 20 or 5 or so years' time. So I think that is particularly helpful, that there is a basis, an evidential basis around that. So there's some prioritisation. That will change depending on different demographics and different community needs, but this is something that we haven't had before. And so anyone who actually wanted to get some clarity around that would have been left wanting.
I also think that we need to be careful not to miss opportunities to create some of these earlier. So 15 or 25 out to the airport with the construction of the new pipeline going out. We should be looking to see when we restore that land, if it's in the right place, we actually just make a track on top of it. So we've got part of that at that point. There's economies of scale that can be delivered. If we just have the desire to do it.
A lot of these things are around language and the use of words. And I think, you know, this government particularly is anti kind of active travel. So, you know, is there a language just around calling it a pathway instead of labelling it something? And my other wonder was, you know, with this government again, considering dropping out the whole spatial plan process within our planning, where does that kind of then leave this kind of work? Does it push it further forward or does it come back? Because it's quite likely that they will drop off that whole spatial plan kind of part of planning by the tour.
Just let Tony finish.
I think that they may take out what's there in name, but I think the need for spatial planning, as in wider forward planning for land use, will always be there under some name.
Yeah.
So I think this will still remain relevant for that.
That's that language thing, isn't it? It's like, you know, when there was funding under active travel was very clearly identified as active travel, but there was always a question about what about the people that aren't active? You know, they are entitled to have pathways as well. So it's got to be a more inclusive kind of approach in the wording of it. I think futuristic.
We do tend to get tied up on a definition.
Yeah.
Active travel. Travel demand management is another one where everybody just assumes that's us trying to get the end user to get on a bike.
Yeah.
It's actually more about us designing, facilitating, providing that, encouraging all that to happen, as well as trying to get one person to get on a bike to replace a car.
We could call them bike roads, and maybe we would get them infrastructure. We call them bike roads and feet roads, and we might get more funding.
Just access. It doesn't matter if you're on a bike or a foot.
I mean, just look, obviously it was critical of the government, and look, there's some crazy stuff going on. I mean, I don't think they are going to eliminate spatial planning. I think that's going to be a part of the RMA reform. We don't know what it's going to look like, but it will probably be part of the RMA reform. You look at their announcements today and yesterday about the road user charges, for instance, and that may, if administered correctly, actually provide a mechanism to get more money into the National Land Transport Fund and to actually target it in the place where the demand is created. Because if you're creating some sort of more sophisticated system, we might be able to get, you know, road user charges returns in the areas which get generated, for instance, including in our district. So, you know, that's the sort of stuff we're going to keep advocating for.
Yeah, I've been interesting on that because people are paying for the tax and the tax now, aren't they? But when it comes to be a road users type tax, or, you know, IRD has a huge amount of millions of dollars outstanding. People can't necessarily afford them. So, you know, then they've got to have a big debt, which is going to be called petrol tax, which I'd be interested to know how much is outstanding in road user tax.
That's right. But the opportunity is to create a more sophisticated system than the current. It's pretty rudimentary at the moment. And if you can create a system that is smarter, you know, and including dealing with the size of vehicles and where they're travelling and all that stuff. But anyway, that's
a little bit outside our domain. Everyone good with that? Let's move on to wayfinding. We can circle back around things. So the second thing that was, or the second theme from your presentation was around wayfinding, which was really helpful. You know, it's been again a key desire of the community here, particularly around the physical wayfinding. I suppose in some pre-discussions, Tony, we were sort of concerned at where the digital wayfinding came from, because it certainly hasn't sort of been driven from the community in the absence of, you know, as compared to the physical wayfinding. So who's driving? Where did the drivers come from for a digital solution to wayfinding, or the the prioritization or the equal footing of digital and physical?
Yeah. So I mean, it stems through the travel demand management business case that was completed and approved, and it identifies that wayfinding is not just about physical signage on a path or on a road. It needs to be more complex than that. The digital side of it goes across to how we manage our parking, maybe variable speed limits, all sorts of information that can be gathered together. There's two ways to look at it. What should we be spending our time on at the moment? And what we're doing is to scope, first of all, what the wayfinding requires, physical and digital. Both really need an audit of what we've already got. We find out that gap, we work out how to fill that over the years through implementations. Physical wayfinding should be much, much simpler. So should no reason we couldn't come ahead. Budgets are very small for TDM, 100,000 per year. So we need to scope out all the tranches. We'll do any enabling works, which may be an audit of what we've got on wayfinding already, and then that will tell us what we need to do across the district to the areas we're going to implement, and that's the funding we ask for in the next long-term plan. Digital may be a little bit behind that. It's going to be far more complex, and this can be how do we tie in what information may come up on a bus stop to a mobile phone app. So back to mobility as a service. What are my options here for travel? So the digital wayfinding may be something we've got part of already, but again, we need to audit that and find out what we already know. There's no reason that we have to wait for one to be fully detailed before we can implement the other. We just need to know what's the crossover between.
We don't have buses in Wānaka, so I don't think that's going to be as much of a use to us at the moment. I suppose there's a concern that that we should be leveraging the Apple Maps and the Google Maps with only 100,000. I mean, as soon as you start to try and do something digital-wise, as you know, and the budget goes crazy. So just only encourage you just to sort of say, how can we give accuracy and support platforms, apps, whatever out there at the moment that are common usage, as opposed to just getting a sense of a desire to build something. So just on that digital side, that's it. But I think the predominant thing here is that we have been really wanting a focus in Wānaka on the physical wayfinding, the signage that we've got a network of pathways, tracks, shared paths, whatever. But at the moment, there is nothing that shows how they join together. And there has been a precedent in Queenstown and Wakatipu to show how that can happen. Can only emphasise that should be a priority. You just talked what's within your team's responsibility for delivering that versus Lee Mutton and Ben Greenwood's team there. There seems to be some confusion as to that physical wayfinding, who's doing what.
Sure. We're planning for district-wide interventions for wayfinding as part of the TDM program. What the minor improvements team have budget to go into those deliveries into interventions as you talked about for Wānaka itself. So it's a conversation between the two teams. They acknowledge we're doing a different project, higher level project across the district. What they're doing aligns with what we don't do. It's common sense. If you don't have enough signage, you can't direct people, and they have the budget available, they can put in that signage. So we're not spending the money money to be taken away from that budget that's been allocated for physical works. We are doing long-term planning.
So what if they're actually going to put the signs in the ground, and that's what they have the budget to do? Are they waiting? Does that require your work to be done first? So they are two distinct projects.
Just
very distinct.
Just worried that there might be two audits of the network if you're doing one, because they're going to need to do a physical implementation here.
For example, if they go and identify where all the signage is and where they need it, that's part of our audit already done. It may not be done in other parts of the district that we still need to do. Yeah. So the same as the first piece we talked about, we take in information all the time and share it. So it's not them and us, we'll share it. They've already done the work. It's easier.
Who's got some questions around wayfinding?
Not so much a question, but it's just want to reiterate the need for wayfinding in the whole upper Clutha basin. So we're a whole stage behind Queenstown. The whole Wānaka base was completely re-signed and redesigned, and nothing has happened here. And you just see people, particularly tourists, wandering around lost on the cycle tracks or walking paths around, connecting even the hardware, connecting hardware to Wānaka. There's just gaps all the way. It's so I cannot stress how strongly this community needs physical wayfinding.
Then, if anybody's audited that already, is that information available?
No, it isn't.
Work to be done.
It's still work to be done. I mean, the community group could do it, but I don't think it will be done to the standard that council would want it done. But it's something that definitely needs to be done as a matter of urgency, and it's something that's been talked about for a long time.
There's a lot of practicalities that actually just don't work, of actually measuring the distances and, you know, designing the signs, and, you know, it's very hard to do that without having the resource allocated. It's just.
So I think the takeaway is that the physical wayfinding is a priority for the district here, and just being careful with the digital side of things, that they are embedded into platforms and technology that's already in existence. That would be what we would keen to support.
Just another comment, sorry for jumping in. And just to report back to us with some of the high level strategies around implementation, only because Gladstone track, and it becomes very emotive as soon as they're put into the ground. But like everything else, it's like there should be a cohesive and consistent theme and a strategy that we can stand behind. And that's sort of our role to play in terms of helping see through that strategic aspect of it.
Something else that's come to my attention recently is inconsistency in mapping of tracks on different council databases and different mapping systems, particularly in what is referred to as active transport and what isn't. So on the Wānaka side, pretty much all of the Queenstown Trails Trusts, including the Coronet Loop, are shown on the QLDC Active Travel app as an active travel route. And tracks that were created this side of the hill, the highway track, the track collecting the communities, are not shown as active transport. So there's this real dichotomy of inconsistency within one map and then between the different mapping systems. So it's something that also I think needs some attention.
Final thing that we needed to talk about was parking management, which seems to have drifted for a long time. And we're really concerned that the work that was initially done by Kylie and Stantec has become dated, and that we'll go out with that data, that we'll talk about this, we'll go out with this data, and people say, well, it's like 18 months, 2 years old now. So where are we actually at having a defined parking management strategy for the Upper Clutha?
Okay, so it's a bundle of 5/6 documents that we need to put together to tell the whole picture. One is the parking strategy, district-wide. The second is the guidelines how to write from that the parking management plans. Those two documents are 90–95% complete. We have 3 parking management plans, one for Wānaka Upper Clutha, Wānaka Town, one for Frankton, one for Queenstown. That bundle is being completed now. Those will be complete by the end of next month. Alongside them will be a plan for the implementation, which is going to be the very complex piece of how do we make all that happen. What we need to do with that bundle of parking management plans is then put them out for consultation, because they haven't been out as a formed pieces yet. So we're close within the next couple of months to having a piece we can bring to you or to the public for comment. The implementation is going to take a little bit longer, and we need to find budget to make it happen.
Okay. So then we do run the risk that we run the consultation, we sign off the plans, the implementation doesn't happen because there's no budget for X years, and then it becomes dated again.
Again, the budgets we have are essentially planning budgets, but if we through the planning and there are earlier implementation we can use the available budget that way. There's over 400,000 in this year. That depends on what we need to buy to produce those documents, find the implementation plan, and then identify the costs for implementation.
So are all 3 parking management plans going to be run in unison? They're not going to be. You're going to go consult on all 3 at the same time, or
my plan is to consult all three at the same time because they're related back to the strategy and guideline documents.
Will the community board get the ability to review or give feedback on what's going to be consulted on before it gets out into the public domain?
As a bundle, I need to take some guidance on where the delegation is for that because it's a strategic piece as well as the local piece. My preference would be that we bring the Wānaka parking management plan to the board before it goes out for local consultation.
I think that would be our preference. For one of the key reasons is if it goes out there and it lacks some local nuance or if something doesn't look right, it automatically torpedoes the whole thing and the credibility goes. And those are the sorts of things that we can pick up and sort of say, you know, how's this going to land? So there's a balance. You don't want to, you know, we're not the arbiters of it, but I think we can play a role to ensure that the piece that goes out for consultation is as fit for purpose and accurate as possible. It allows for a good, and it also allows us to also be well informed so that we support the consultation because it will be, I was going to say it will be contentious. It just naturally you need to do with parking. Who's got some questions for the team around parking management?
One quick question. What are you going to use for enforcement? For parking?
Generally or something specific?
Generally and then ultimately.
You mean a technology solution, you mean, or
Yeah.
is that what you're saying?
There certainly will be considering technology solutions within that implementation package.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a lot of talk amongst the retailers in town just with regards to the car parking, the other one on Dunmore Street. Even just having some kind of technology in those two car parking places in terms of people going out and rubbing chalk off their tyres and stuff like that. Obviously, recognition kind of thing is nice and easy and giving discounts to locals. I see it as an easy way of doing those two areas anyway, without having to go around every single street deciding that it's going to be 30 minutes. Wow,
I think there's a genuine mix of what we can achieve through license plate recognition, but also there's always a need for boots on the ground as well. Because there are areas that may not be covered or maybe not straightforward. So I think it's always going to be a mix. But if we can simplify the process, it's easier for all.
Who else has got some questions? So what's the timing we're actually looking at then, Tony? What's realistically, where are we going to next connect with you around the parking management? Like, when is it probably going to come? Are you still unsure whether the community board will have some involvement because of when you said delegated authorities and the like?
A little bit is around the timing of the election changes. Saying I'm aiming to have my documentation ready by the end of next month, the end of September, and that is then prepared to go out for approvals. That will also depend on how far ahead we are with the implementation plan, which should be, or at least a project plan for that, an idea of how we're going to do that at the same time. So I'm thinking before Christmas.
Why would we consult on something where we've already done the implementation? Is that sort of predetermined?
The implementation plan for parking is going to be very complex because there's about 12 different teams in council that have currently got a function, from the people who write the policy, administer the permits, enforce, charge, the property owners. A lot of people to tie together in that implementation. Some of it already happens. So if we're adding extra permits, there's already a system for permits, but we need to make sure that implementation is all tied up.
Parking, going.
Started the conversation nearly 3 years ago, and I don't believe we'll be consulted on it in this term. And if I'm hopefully re-elected, we'll carry on the conversation, I guess, talking parking. We'll one day design our towns without cars. It's interesting because you go to the children and talk about, what they love about Wānaka. It's not a car.
Transport. Anything else around transport that we'd like to ask the team before we conclude?
Well, just a signal I made. So from RTC the other day, there was discussion around NZTA's speed limit reviews, and they've sort of taken a very, what I call a very unscientific approach to just responding to the problems they know about rather than actually looking holistically at it. So if there are any state highway speed limit reviews, whether they're Luggett or Rabbit Town or whatever that you want us to pass on to NZTA, then let us know through your networks in the community association, whatever.
Well, you know that we produced that 2023 document of all the community associations. We wrote that out.
Yeah,
that's still
go back to that.
Yeah, it's still current. I mean, we have we asked the community associations, wrote it all up. There's an 8-page document with everything around where we felt that there needs to be interventions. Yeah, right. I'd hate for that work not to. I mean, there's a lot of work put into that.
Let's send that back through to them.
Yes, I'll forward that to you.
Forward that to me.
Yep.
Take care of that.
Is the speed limit work in your team?
We have a member of our team working on the speed management project, yes.
I'll send through my comments on that because I'm just sort of reading through some of the opportunities to comment now. The part I struggle with it is it feels ad hoc and there's always the sentiment that's coming from a strategy, but I can't tell you what strategy is. And it's sort of like, because you go into, okay, we're a town centre, it's like all 40 Ks out. But then it's just sort of random 50s and a 60 and a 40 and a 70. And just like, no matter how much we talk about it, we tend to just still be going, okay, well, that should be this and yada, 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 rather than feeling what I know the sentiment is, but I don't see it applied consistently in order to really help people understand the network.
So the work is on a plan, but you'd like to see a strategy.
Yeah, like, I mean, when I was sitting in the meeting recently, I was going 180, 60, 40. I was thinking 40 residential zones, 60 commuter routes, 80, arterials that are bypassing, hundreds open roads. And I go, great, if that was applied across the entire network, what would it look like? And where would the anomalies be? But I don't see that sort of level of integration in terms of, because it's like coming into town and being like, right, you're in a red zone, this is all going to be 40 or whatever else. I think that's where most people struggle with, because it seems we always fight for these tiny little bits and pieces and everything feels, like it's changing every 5 minutes and no one knows because there's one sign at the start that they missed a set. I'm not saying anything specific because I know I want to talk about strategy and overall thinking, but that's the part that I feel like I'm not well versed on. I don't see that in the work that I've been presented with. I see a big list of roads that have just got what they were and what they're going to. And I know now there's need for business case for every single road as part of it in order to change it. And there's a lot of changes. There must be a shitload of work behind that that's really like having to reinforce it. But yeah, I'm just struggling to see where that high level strategy is coming in.
Okay. I can't give you a direct response because I'm not leading that work, but I can get an answer for you.
Yeah, no, awesome. I mean, I'll formalize it in feedback too, because anyway, that's cool.
Jeremy, you got any questions for the community board that would be helpful? I know you've been sitting in and you're working at an engineering level, so it's, but just as anything, while we've got you here, anything you're curious about?
No, I do like Linda's, the green path that she pointed out there. We can try and chase that up and work with that, or the Trails Trust would probably be good to do that as well. And through the connection through the proposed sports fields area, that's just going to help with our current plan that we've got for the long-term plan. It's all just going to benefit it. And I guess from a roading and active travel point of view, there's quite a few neat projects that developers are building in the pipeline that are going to connect one side of town to the other. It's going to really help with getting people out of cars.
Yeah, and I think, Jeremy, there's a lot of work done in the blue-green networks also, which I'm talking with Jeannie, that could align with these pathways that are currently noted, and just combining all that information that's already there will provide us those linkages, I'm sure, and more clarity.
I think we need to keep an eye on these priorities and dates for the proposals as developers create sections. We want to make sure we don't end up with a bit missing that we've scheduled for 10 years time. If we can bring those forward, just connect connect bits that are being developed by developers. I think that flexibility is really important.
Particularly with the amount of work going on at Three Parks.
Yes,
There's just the opportunities
all
and
that
orchard.
whole area.
Road, yeah, the
Yeah.
proposal along Bank Road, that next stage of Orchard Road. Yeah, that's got a shared path at the front along the Bank Road.
Yeah.
And that development's all going down with the Bank Road to the roundabout with Ballantyne. So there's the existing path on the other side. We just need to look at fixing those links as small projects if necessary.
Well done, team. Thanks for coming across. Brent, thanks, and Tony, thanks for your time. Good to see you, Jeremy, and thanks for being, supporting us in these transport initiatives. Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks, team. Thanks,
Thank you. Yeah.
Georgia. Thanks, Nikki.